I just want to briefly mention a number of economic points. I cannot replace Daco, cannot be here today, but I think that complements the picture a little bit. International perspective, domestic political perspective, and then an economic perspective. And I just want to share with you some observations on the state of the Taiwanese economy up to the outbreak of the Ukrainian crisis and how DAG looks at it. So from the outset, you would say that Taiwanese economy is in very good shape. It has experienced its steepest economic growth in more than a decade in 2021, with around 6% of GDP growth in that year. Export orders have increased almost by 15% year on year, particularly in the realm of semiconductors, as you can imagine, where Taiwan is already responsible for a staggering 63% share of the global semiconductor market, which is really remarkable. And just 54% of that is delivered by TSMC. And this is definitely to continue for a good period of time due to the international environment. We have seen a lot of capital investment in Taiwan over the last year, particularly in the 5G infrastructure build-out, in the offshore wind sector. We've seen an expanding fleet capacity of airline and container shipping companies, and you might say that all indicates a very strong economy. Production capacity of semiconductor fabs continues to be tight on the international market, which is good news for the Taiwanese semiconductor industry, particularly for TSMC. So there is good reason to believe that this important part of the economy is going to prosper for years to come. And what is also very, very worth mentioning is that Taiwan still is a very important trading partner of China, particularly in the provision of intermediate goods, where we can see substantial cross-strait economic exchange against all odds. What we also do see is that Taiwanese companies reshore to Taiwan from China in increasing scale in terms of investment and also job creation. So that is a counter trend in a way. And it also helps Taiwan to make it stronger in high-tech sectors, in R&D, and what you have. So if you look at all this, you would say that no matter what kind of crisis there has been during the COVID-19 imbroglio and what we have now probably in the Ukrainian theater, so to say, it's not necessarily detrimental to the Taiwanese economy, maybe even to the contrary. Now, in Doug's chapter, you find many interesting things because he's dealing with Taiwan's industrial policy. And as Junie has mentioned earlier, he's not coming to a very positive conclusion here. He reports when looking very deep down into Taiwan's industrial policy, there are a lot of structural problems. But I want to point at another issue, which I think is quite interesting. In her second inaugural speech in May 2020, Tsai Ing-wen pointed out those 6 core strategic industries that she wanted to invest in with her government very systematically. So particularly the information and digital industries, including semiconductors, of course, IT hardware, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, biomedical industry, what you have, all what sounds high tech and is supposed to be very, very strong in the future. And then what she was also saying in that inauguration speech was that Taiwan wants to turn back to import substitution in a way. She said, quote, countries that end their dependence on others will have a head start on national development. And she also said that economic policy must use domestic demand, particularly demand from the public sector and national security needs, as the basic engine for our industrial development. And we have to utilize our government's guarantee of domestic demand to establish a global strategic materials manufacturing industry under the Taiwanese brand and help it expand into other markets. And so that comes to the conclusion that there may be a tendency in Taiwanese economic thinking on the part of the government to, expand on mercantilism in foreign exchange intervention, which Taiwan has done for many, many decades. It has a completely undervalued currency. To expand that and also becoming more mercantilist in industrial policy, or let's say in the manufacturing sector, Taiwanese economy. So, and that may remind you exactly of what the Chinese government says about its own economy that has to become independent in a way, independent from global supply chains, that wants to become a global innovation economy, but being able to stand on its own foot. So Taiwan's government apparently is going into the same direction, though from a different position, I would say, because Taiwan is much more dependent on European export, on global export markets than the Chinese economy is. But here we are also in this kind of, let's say, decoupling narrative in which the second Tsai administration apparently also ships in. And so that comes to a conclusion that is not so optimistic, saying that, well, we have to see if that kind of economic strategic turn, if it is one, really will be accepted by Taiwan's global economic partners, who might start to push back against this kind of mercantilist thinking that seems to pop up and evolve in the Tsai administration. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, so that we also can integrate maybe an economic perspective. And so now we are here where we are, and I think, Junie, if you would like to moderate our audience discussion now with the speakers, particularly Carrie and Shelley, I would pass over to you.
Yes, thank you, Gunter. And just before we start our panelist discussion, can I ask our panelists, if you are with us, would you like to switch on your camera as if it's in a real situation? Well, this is real, but if it's in-person situation, we will hug and toast champagne. This is a great achievement that we had for 2 years. Almost 3 years. Am I right? Yeah. So, but we can't. So can we see you on Teams? And we would like to take a picture. Mandy is doing that. And thank you so much for chipping, second to Gunter's good talk, to chip into this process. We've been through all this, and I felt that in my very unjustifiable introduction to each of your chapter, I always say, to be continued. They are not happy with what they see in their perspectives. So I feel like this is the time for you to tell us what you've seen the situation and in Taiwan from different perspectives, domestically and Scott's Taiwan USA relationship, for instance. What I did not say, which I didn't say a lot of each of your chapters. And please provide us your thoughts in deal with the change that we've seen. And thank you once more. I think Mandy already took all of your good picture, and we would like to share with you all later on. So I think the floor is open to the panelists first, and then we will open for the Q&A as well.